at this point, I think we can kind of open up the floor to each other, and even if the audience wants to jump in, to sort of ask questions. To start off, I had a question prepared for Colin. I think it's in today's society. I think that there's a lot of talk about millennials and college students and people maybe not caring so much about the news or people our age that don't necessarily know what's going on in the news. And so I'm wondering, as far as the newscast goes here too, and when you're making the script and the rundown for our stories, what kind of things do you think that our audience is paying attention to, and what sorts of things do you think they tune out?
Well, at least at this point in our generation's lives, there's a lot about an evening newscast that wouldn't appeal to them, namely just a lack of glitz. It's factual information, and that's what they go to school to find. And why would they spend their free time just to learn more factual information? It lends itself to the notion that older people will tune into the news more often because the older people are usually the ones that are out experiencing the world as it unfolds, which is what the news is reporting. We're almost in a bubble, especially in college, where basically what happens on campus dictates the opinions we form of our environment. And there's a lot, it's unfortunate, but there are many students on any college campus that could certainly care less about what's happening around the world. So news that reaches viewers of our demographic are certainly more up-tempo, there is more human interest. It pulls more on things they're interested in and usually uses more emotional or relatable ploys. That is single-handedly the reason that BuzzFeed exploded like it did in the past few years. And I feel that it's not that newscasting as a medium is going to fade out with our generation's maturation, but by the time students like us do reach the age of people that are commonly watching newscasts now, they may value what the older generation finds in it.
Right, so you're saying it's sort of like an evolutionary process almost, like how much we care kind of depends on how much we're involved in the aftermath of such things.
Mm-hmm. And it will cycle around.
Right, I understand. So
that's kind of what we find. As you're younger, you may not be as interested in a newspaper. It's kind of the same idea as the evening broadcast, but once you start having to pay tax bills and things of that nature, you want to know why your local council, why the state is raising taxes. When you have kids, you get excited because their photo is going to be in the newspaper. There's other things that connect you to a newspaper, or even a nightly newscast that you just don't have when you're younger. It's different connections to these things that help bring you into it. And that's something that we find. It is somewhat concerning. Some of these things are dwindling, but we're kind of, I won't say banking on that, but it's helpful.
Yeah, so some of the things, Caleb, that you do as a writer is to sort of not almost modernize your outlet of news. You recently started a Facebook page. How is the result of that? Like, how's this outcome of it going? Do you think that you've gained viewers or even readers from just having that social media presence?
It's hard to quantify at this point, and in my experience, anybody I've talked to it's hard for them to quantify. Just because you're having more Facebook interaction, that you're having more readership, that you have more people picking up the newspaper. But we definitely have more people interacting with us, getting our news one way or another. That's definitely positive. And yeah, we're another factor that we deal with is we are in a rural area, but also an area that skews a bit older as well. And of course, areas that skew older, they are less technically advanced, and we try to be sensitive to those things. But that also means they're less likely to come to our Facebook page, or less likely to come to our website. But we still also have to be building our audience for potential readers who aren't going to come to the print product. We have to be building readership and people who might come to Facebook or to website. So I think we're doing that. I think we see a lot of younger people coming to us through our Facebook page. We're trying to do more video and things. That's another fun thing about the time that we're living in, is that whole idea of video has been democratized. We can be kind of our own TV station. We can be our own radio station. That's not limited to businesses that were traditionally TV or traditionally radio. We can pick those things up. The problem that I wouldn't say it's a problem, it's just there's a learning curve involved. I went to school to learn how to write, so did everyone else that I work with. So I also don't have a face for TV, so I apologize to anybody watching this. We're not built for those kind of things. We're trying to learn those skills. We're trying to learn how to shoot video. We're trying to learn how to talk to video. We even, like for Christmas, we tried to do some kind of fictional videos that we were trying to track down Santa around Greenville. And so we're, writing scripts to some degree and staging things. And they're all things that we have to learn. But hopefully the things that are connecting us to our reader and to new readers and then getting them to our core product, to our print product, all of it is, for me, is the metaphor I like to use is getting them to, no one likes to eat their vegetables. A lot of what we're giving them is their vegetables, what their local council's doing, what their school board's doing. They need to be learning about these things, but we need to find ways to get them to the product and get them to those things. And hopefully this is one way that's doing it. We believe it is. Some of the numbers are showing that, but it's hard to show a direct comparison between interaction with Facebook and even, subscriptions or revenue of any kind.
Yeah, even so, I think it's good to just put a face to the violence. Maybe you had a reader that didn't know what any of you looked like, and you go on your Facebook page and you see all sorts of videos like the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge and things like that. So at least you're putting a face to it, and that makes it a little bit more humanizing.
Not an attractive face, but a face nonetheless.
Yeah, no, you're all fine and entertaining, certainly.
How do you feel about, the record office is still pretty locked down, right? You have to be a subscriber really to get much content.
Yeah.
And that's been pretty universal for most small town papers. And you see, other papers haven't figured it out. New York Times hasn't figured it out. How do you feel about where that's going to evolve, or if that's going to change, things like that?
I don't know enough about the numbers to give a solid answer on it, but the people who are in charge of those things with our publication have explained to me that, we have to generate revenue out of this. We're spending money on it, so we have to make money on it, and having it free out there is just not, you're not bringing money. You can support it through ads. Again, our area isn't as readily interested in advertising on the web. They're more used to advertising on traditional means, whether it be a newspaper or a radio station, sometimes even TV. They don't see their customers on the web, so we can't do it ad-based. Some people get that to work, but with news, it's looking like that might not be the best way to go. Subscription-based may be the best way to go. It works for a lot of the small town newspapers, even some print magazines and different things that have their stuff on the web. Something we've tried to do is provide some of our content free. We can mark certain articles as free to hopefully let people know, hey, we do have a website. You can get stuff here. Stick around. Maybe there's something else you might like. Maybe you want a subscription. You can get the stuff all the time, everything on here. So we try to give free samples, if you will. Try to give everyone a taste to get them involved. I'm not smart enough to talk numbers and revenue and these things to give you a good answer, but that's my anecdotal impressions on the situation. It's kind of maybe a hybrid of the two. It's having a subscription model, but enticing people through free stuff.
I think somebody could really, you could start your own consulting firm tomorrow and be a millionaire probably 6 months from now if you could figure that question out.
Yeah.
You'd be a multi-millionaire.
If anybody could tell the New York Times how to make money on the web, they would hire you.
Yeah.
And that's sad, because they're the flagship newspaper of maybe the world, if not our country.
I have a question specifically for the print journalists. There's clearly a lot to worry about with running a paper, especially since it's not as strong a medium as it used to be. And there's a lot that goes into just getting people to read. But with the actual product itself, I was wondering what goes into striking a balance between stories, mainly human interest versus hard news, but with all of those in mind. Basically, is there like a priority list that helps you choose which stories go in first?
Do you have any why don't you shoot your impressions first?
As far as priorities go, you want to. It all goes back to your demographic. You know, if you have a paper, a newspaper, having worked on the records and the 20, you're going to put what people are going to be most interested in on the front page. You're going to put your big art on the front page. You're going to put your local stories on the front page. You're going to put your most recent teal event or most successful teal event on the front page. So that's kind of fair, like free game. And then you're also going to put teasers on the front page to more important stories that are maybe in the remnants of the paper. And then as far as priorities go, newspapers are laid out in sections. So you have your opinion section, your sports section, your entertainment section, your news section, whatever it may be. And so I think the significance of the story, a lot of times when you're working with layouts, since I've had experience in that too, you put the hard-hitting stories at the top of the page. What are they going to see first? And then there's like a dollar bill rule too. If your story is longer than a dollar bill, somebody's probably not going to read it or like continue reading. So that kind of goes into the inverted pyramid. You put the most important facts at the top. So whatever your reader is going to see first, like if you're in their shoes, then that's what you want to focus on. You want to highlight. You want to make it the biggest. That's kind of my impression. So I think that as far as what's most important would kind of be, what do you see first? That should be what's most important. What you want people to read.
The old adage is, if it bleeds, it leads. It's kind of an ugly thing to say, but unfortunately, a lot of studies have shown that we would much rather read about terrible things happening to other people than good things happening to each other. You were talking about your audience and demographics. We keep that in mind, but that's not something we utter very often when we're making a decision at our newspaper between a story about something good happening to somebody and something terrible happening to them. We don't say, well, if it bleeds, it leads. We're picking the bad one. In addition to being a small town newspaper, our niche is also that we're a community newspaper. So our focus is much more often on the human interest stuff. Now you do want to have a balance of each. We do have a focus on good things that happen, but if something important, something bad happens, we do have a responsibility to cover. People need to know what's happening, and they need to have people putting time into finding out what actually happened, doing the work to find out the actual facts and passing them on. So we do have that responsibility, and that's kind of oftentimes the way that we look at it. We do have a responsibility to do these things, and so we will fulfill that responsibility. We also, though, be looking for positive things, human interest type things, because we do think that they have a place, and we would also like to, in addition to fulfilling our responsibilities, celebrate good things that are happening as well. They don't always bring in as much readership, but our readers have shown that it is somewhat important to them enough to continue buying our products. So there is something there. It is a balance. We'd have to have specific examples of like a hard-hitting news story versus a feature, which one we would put where. But it could go either way depending on what story is good, what story is bad, and the context.
I certainly learned something today.